We've all been there, right? That sudden dead silence when the internet just poof, it's gone. Your Wi-Fi icon is sitting there mocking you with full bars, but nothing's loading. It's probably one of the most universal frustrations we have now. But what if I told you that digital silence, that moment the signal breaks, isn't just some random technical glitch? What if it's a symptom of something, well, something way, way bigger? Okay, let's get into it.
I mean, we always get the same old reasons, don't we? Oh, it was a software update gone wrong, or a configuration error, maybe a construction crew cut a cable somewhere. But there's this really fascinating and, yeah, kind of wild theory that says those are just the last dominoes to fall. This theory suggests there's this hidden connection, a circuit almost, between our digital world, our own minds, and the planet itself. So that's the real question we're tackling here. When the internet breaks, what is actually going on?
Okay, first things first, let's ground this in reality. This is not just some hypothetical what if. We're seeing a pattern of massive, critical failures. I mean, look at this. From the AT&T nationwide outage in early 2024, all the way through to the giants, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Cloudflare. These aren't just little hiccups, you know? These are huge systemic shocks to the whole system. And when you see a pattern this clear, you've got to take a closer look.
All right, so let's peel back that first layer. This is where it gets interesting. The theory starts by mapping these huge digital failures to some incredibly powerful physical events. And we're not talking about hurricanes or anything like that. We're talking about massive storms erupting from the sun and, well, weird stuff happening deep inside the Earth. The big question is, are all these things just coincidences? Well, let's look at the data. Okay, so check this out. This is where the coincidences start to look, well, a lot less like coincidences. Let's take that AT&T outage. Official story, software update. But get this, just hours before it happened, the sun unleashed two massive X-class solar flares. I mean, those are the biggest, most powerful kind there are. Then you've got Microsoft Azure. The official reason was a configuration change, but it happened exactly when Earth was getting a direct hit from a geomagnetic storm. That's basically when all that energy from a solar flare actually smacks into our planet's magnetic field. You see the pattern here? The official, boring reason always seems to happen right next to these massive cosmic events. Which leads to this central idea, this hypothesis. The software update or the configuration change, that's not the real cause. It's the cover story. It's camouflage. The theory goes that all this intense energy from the sun, the geomagnetic storm, it creates electrical noise. It can literally flip ones to zeros inside computer memory, stressing all those delicate electronic parts. So the automated systems freak out and fail, and that's what triggers the bad update or the error that shows up in the official report. So think of it like this. The solar storm loads the gun, but the software is what pulls the trigger. And this is a really key piece of the puzzle. Something called the 4-day lag. Now, you might look back at the chart and say, wait, the Google and Cloudflare outages didn't happen right during the storm, they happened a few days later. And you'd be right, but here's the thing, that doesn't disprove the connection, it actually makes it stronger. It's kind of like bending a paperclip back and forth. It doesn't break on the very first bend, right? It gets weaker and then snap. The solar storm is that initial stress. It weakens the whole system, fatigues the components, and then, 4 days later, under just normal everyday pressure, it breaks. This 4-day lag, it's like a smoking gun. It could be the signature of our entire digital world being battered by the sun and then just giving up. Okay, so we've connected internet outages to storms on the sun. That's already pretty mind-bending. But the theory doesn't stop there, not even close. This is where it takes a turn into something much, much stranger. It asks this really radical question. What if we are part of that circuit? What if our collective thoughts and feelings are actually playing a role in all this?
And this brings us to the core of the whole idea, something called the neospheric feedback loop. It sounds complicated, but just hang with me. It basically says that 3 things we think of as separate are actually all connected. You've got the technosphere, that's all our tech, the physical internet. You've got the geomagnosphere, that's Earth's magnetic shield. And then, linking them, is the noosphere. The easiest way to think of the noosphere is like the planet's collective consciousness, the sum of every human thought, feeling, and emotion happening all at once. And in this wild model, the internet is the wire that plugs all 3 of them together.
So how on earth would a loop like that even work? Well, here's how the shockwave would supposedly play out. Step 1. A big internet outage happens. That creates total chaos in the flow of information. Basically, high entropy. Step 2. What do? millions, maybe billions of us all react at the exact same moment with that same feeling of shock, of frustration. Now think about that. That's not just random noise. It's a synchronized, coherent wave of human emotion. The theory says that this focused blast of feeling actually creates a tiny but powerful biomagnetic signal, an electrical pulse from all of us, that literally jams the Earth's natural frequency, making that magnetic shield just a little bit weaker.
And believe it or not, there's a potential physical basis for this. The Earth has its own kind of electromagnetic heartbeat. It's called the Schumann resonance, and it pulses at 7.83 Hertz. Now, here's the crazy part. Our own brainwaves, when we're in that relaxed, creative state, the alpha/status state, they vibrate at, you guessed it, 7.83 Hertz. It's an exact match, a perfect resonant frequency. So, are we literally tuned into the planet? And if we are, can our collective freak out actually throw that tuning completely out of whack?
So if, and it's a big if, but if this feedback loop is real, the consequences go way beyond a broken internet connection. They're not just digital or mental, they could be physical. We're talking about the idea that all this informational chaos, this jamming of the planet's frequency, could literally be putting the Earth's crust, the ground beneath our feet, under incredible stress.
Okay, now let's be super clear here. The theory isn't saying the Earth is going to shatter like a piece of glass. It has a liquid core that acts like a giant shock absorber. But it's not about shattering, it's about tearing. The idea is that all this electrical chaos up in the atmosphere could create powerful electrical currents right in the ground. And those currents could put a ton of stress on the geological fault lines that are already there, all over the planet.
And the scientific how for all of this comes down to something called the piezoelectric effect. Sounds fancy, but the idea is simple. A huge chunk of the Earth's crust is made of quartz. And quartz has this really cool property. If you zap it with electricity, it physically vibrates. It actually changes shape. So if the chaos from an outage creates those ground currents we talked about, it could make all that quartz in the fault lines start to vibrate, which could reduce the friction holding them together and maybe, just maybe, trigger earthquakes.
And look, we're seeing some weird signs that the planet is under a lot of stress. In late 2025, we had a record-breaking 47 volcanoes all erupting at the same time along the Ring of Fire. We're seeing swarms of earthquakes under supervolcanoes like Campi Flegrei in Italy. And then there's the South Atlantic anomaly. NASA has confirmed this giant weak spot in our magnetic shield isn't just getting bigger, it's actually splitting in two. It doesn't look like one clean break. It looks more like the whole planet is kind of, unzipping at the seams.
All right, this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, this is the most profound part of the whole theory. It's the idea that ties everything together. The outages, our minds, the geology, and it links it all back to the fundamental physics of information. It's a concept called the thermodynamic cost of lies.
So in physics, there's this basic rule. Everything in the universe wants to settle into its lowest, easiest energy state. This theory applies that same rule to information. Think about it. The truth is the low energy state. It's stable. It doesn't take any effort to maintain because it just is. But a lie? A lie is an unstable, high energy state. It goes against reality, so you have to constantly pump energy into it, through suppression, through censorship, just to stop it from collapsing back into the truth. Here's the perfect way to think about it. A lie is like holding a beach ball underwater. It takes constant effort, constant energy to keep it submerged. The second you let go, what happens? It shoots right back up to the surface. That surface, that's the truth. And the theory suggests that our entire global information system is trying to hold millions of these beach balls underwater all at once. And that takes an incredible amount of energy. The whole system is just running hot.
And this isn't just a clever metaphor either. There's a real law of physics called Landauer's principle, and it proves that information is a physical thing. It says that erasing even one single bit of information isn't free. It has a physical cost. It always generates a tiny amount of heat, of energy. So you have to ask, what happens when you try to suppress information on a global scale? You generate an immense amount of information heat. It's like the whole system gets a fever, and that energy has to go somewhere.
So, let's play this out. What does the absolute worst-case scenario look like in this model? It starts with a trigger, a perfect storm. A massive X-class solar flare hits the Earth right at a moment of peak social tension, causing a total global digital collapse. No banks, no logistics, no communication. Silence.
Then comes the jamming. Billions of minds all at once in a state of panic. That creates that massive coherent wave of dissonance we talked about before. This huge biomagnetic signal from humanity just completely overwhelms the planet's natural frequency, shorting out the whole system.
And that leads to a breach. The magnetic shield, already weak, just ruptures. It can't handle the storm from the sun on the outside and the storm of human panic from the inside. And the result? The cloud isn't just offline. Every hard drive, every server, it's all demagnetized. Our entire digital history just erased.
And finally, the reset. The planet's system is completely overloaded with noise. Digital, informational, emotional. And like any system that's fried, it does one thing to save itself: a hard reboot. Only for a planet, a hard reboot is a geomagnetic reversal, a pole flip, wiping the slate clean to get back to a stable state.
Look, it is a radical and, yeah, pretty unsettling chain of events, and it's built on a framework that, while speculative, is internally consistent, and it forces us to ask a really profound question. For all of human history, we've seen ourselves as being at the mercy of nature, the sun, the storms, the planet. But what if that's not the whole story anymore? Is it possible that the Earth is not just reacting to the sun, but is now, for the first time, finally reacting to us?